Actually, instead of introducing you, I'm going to let you guys introducing yourself first for a first roundup, and I'm going to maybe moderate with one or two questions, and hopefully that's going to spark some questions from the public. So we have microphone running around. You can also ask questions through the Slido. So maybe Laura, don't you mind to start and introducing yourself?
Hi, thank you, Thibaut, for inviting me. So my name is Laura Díaz-Muñoz. I'm originally from Spain, but I've been in Napa for almost 10 years now. I work with Christopher Carpenter with Cardinal, Locoya, La Jota, Brave, part of Jackson Family Wines. And for the past 4 or 5 years, I'm the winemaker for Gallery, a brand also with Jackson Family Wines, and I make it with Chris there at Cardinal.
Hi, I'm Peter Heitz. I'm the wine grower at Turnbull Wine Cellars. Turnbull's largely in Oakville, 150 acres of vines. For other projects, I farm and make wine from about 50 other acres. So farming 200 acres or so and making wine from that in the Napa Valley. Fourth generation Napa Valley grape grower guy.
Rich Salvestrin, third generation grape grower, grow grapes in saline appellation. We farm about 35 acres in 3 different vineyard sites, and we use all of our fruit for our own wine production.
Okay, so thank you guys. And before asking you more broad questions, I have some specific targeted questions, maybe starting with you, Laura. Hopefully it builds up. What is your take on those shade close experiment, Laura?
So for the past 3 years, I've been experimenting with saidcloth because I have a site in Santa Elena where I source for Sauvignon Blanc, and it's a very warm spot. I have some issues. The first 2 years that I worked with that site, I had a lot of issues with sunburn. The flavors weren't there. I got wines that were very blank. I got a lot of shrinkage or sugar concentration was or sugar outload was moving too fast. I was losing acidity. So I had previous experiences in Spain with saidcloths and with different using different colors for different reasons. In this case, I wanted to use it to avoid some sunburn, but in the past we use it to actually increase yield. With different colors, and that's something that it was very interesting for me to hear about the experiments at the Oakville station, because it is the influence of the light and the radiation and how we can manipulate it and manipulate the quality of the radiation is very important with any kind of plants and with vines especially, and there's not many studies about it. I use saidcloth in this site in Santa Elena to avoid sunburn, and I use 2 different saidcloths with different said factors, and it has been very interesting. It's true that the vintages have had a different impact. For example, 2016, the difference that I've seen is that we have a lot of very cold mornings and the sugar loading was very slow this year. That's my experience. So I didn't have actually a lot of problems with sun, but I noticed in the past with saidcloth that I avoided sunburn. I changed the profile of the flavors. I helped that side to actually allow more time for hanging that fruit and not speeding up too much the sugar load. And I was able to actually promote a little bit of more of that accumulation of the aroma profiles that are so typical from the Sauvignon Blanc, that are going to be the precursors of the thiols that are very important in the profile of aromas that I want to find in the Sauvignon Blancs. And also, I was trying to retain some of the pyracins that are so important in Sauvignon Blanc. So that's my experience.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting to hear your feedback from a wide variety standpoint. Maybe, Peter, would you like to share a few thoughts regarding these discussions about polymeric anthocyanin, color? How much color does matter for you when growing the vines, also converting it into wine, specifically in the context of 16, but maybe more broadly as you make wine season after season?
Yeah, I'm in regards to color stability in the wine, I thought that the talk was way over my head. All the different molecules, I was kind of trying to stay awake for that one. No offense. I'm just not that smart. I guess we practice very traditional winemaking techniques, and I guess for me, actually understanding exactly how the compounds bond together takes away the magic for me, and I don't want to know about it. Okay. In all seriousness, to me, it's I get that a lot of people in the room are interested in honing the knife and pushing ahead with great precision, and I guess I'm going the other way. Maybe I'm an old dog, but I just don't think it's that interesting. So the I think we have high quality fruit that we work very hard to farm and have a good result. And we have mostly eastern or western facing hotter afternoon sites. I think that heat does degrade the amount of color pigment that our fruit comes in with, and the shade cloth looks pretty interesting. We do a lot of work with tipping and pushing laterals. We do almost no leaf removal. We have some viticultural challenges that we deal with composting, appropriate timing of tipping, more lateral growth on the afternoon side. So we're focused on trying to get and maintain as much color pigment as we can in the fruit. And then in the winemaking process, I cold soak everything, and not really to get more color, although it sounds like that might be a good factor. But just I believe that it makes better wine for me in our sites. I don't know why that works, but it does for me. And then I do mostly very long extractions. We have hot sites, so we have more elevated sugars, hypothetically more alcohol, which is going to be extracting more tannin. So apparently I have a relatively high color pigment load coming from my vineyards, and then plenty of alcohol to release lots of tannin. So we have lots of binding of those things. So just through natural luck, or not necessarily from effort or intention, but just from the way things work out. That's what we've got.
So does that affect your decision as far as timing for harvest, your perception of this color potential, even if you don't measure anything, but how do you modulate your decision around harvest date?
I just I walk all the vineyards and eat too many berries. I just go by taste. I don't actually measure anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all by taste. And it's in 2016 was the second time in the last decade that I found myself, reaching at 5 a.m. for a berry, and my brain saying, "Don't put that fucking berry in my mouth," because I'm just done eating berries. And then my hand put it in my mouth, and it wasn't pleasant. Not because the berry wasn't good, but just I didn't want to taste another berry. I think people think that it's very romantic making wine, but when you're like bent over dry heaving out berries at 5 a.m. with your headlamp on, it's not so much fun. But that's the technique I use. It's very it's very effective.
Sounds good. Rich?
And I'm somewhere in between. We don't do a lot of anthocyanin analysis either. Most of our harvest decisions are based on sugar, acid, pH measurements, visual inspections, and tasting a lot of berries. With regard to sunlight exposure and shading, we find that canopy management and leafing is very critical to individual blocks. And sunlight, excess sunlight, sunburn are something that we try to avoid at all costs. We do not use any shade cloth, but depending on the block and row orientation, we're very aware of how much leafing to do, how much canopy trimming, the timing of the leafing, and just trying to find that right balance of sunlight exposure on the fruit without allowing any sunburn to occur. You've probably all seen the berries that are fully exposed to sun that stay green or stay pink, don't fully color up. We're able to minimize that considerably just by timing leafing, the amount of leafing, and canopy management. Irrigation's another thing that we look at. One of the things, I thought the information today was extremely interesting, all the different talks. Some of it, I realize that it verifies scientifically some of the things we're practicing, even though we don't know all the scientific basis when we're doing it. So this was really validating to hear some of the things that support what we're doing as to why. So I commend you and the work you're doing, and it's very educational. So I appreciate that. One of the things we do to help with augment the canopy management is irrigation prior to the heat spikes we have. I try and go through and anticipate these heat spikes and go through and irrigate all the vines, especially just pre-veraison and after veraison, to try and hydrate the soil so the vines have available moisture to pick up when they can pick it up. I thought the cavitation talk was very interesting. I'd like to learn more about that and understand how that affects some of the decisions we make. So again, I mean, I'm kind of old school as well, and doing things that I've learned over time, and now learning the science behind them as it develops. So.
Yeah, during the break, we briefly chat, and you were saying that you had been surprised last year in 2016 of the reduction in yield, and that maybe bridging the scientific knowledge could help understanding why it's not exactly the yield you had expected. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, my comment was I expected or estimated a little bit higher yield than we actually realized in 2016. I think because of the heat in the growing season in 2015 and the adequate rainfall we experienced over the winter in coming into 2016, I estimated higher yields than we actually realized. I guess I didn't have a complete understanding of the effects of 3 years of drought and how the vine recovers. And also, I was more under the assumption that with the growing season we had, the amount of heat, bud fruitfulness would have been higher than it actually was. There could have been other things as well, but I did anticipate higher yields in 2016. We did exceed 2015 yields, but not by a lot. I think we were 5% over 2015 yields in 2016. So that was a little underestimation on my part. But some of the information presented today helps understand why that occurred or why that may have occurred.
Yeah. And now maybe a more general question for the three of us and also for everyone. Like, what do you think are the new challenges we will be facing now that we understand a little bit better the flux of water, the fluxes of nitrogen, and also the importance of modulating the microclimate? Like in the future, 5 years from now, where do you think we should start gathering knowledge to improve the food composition? Because things are not going to stay the same in the changing climatic pattern. So what are the most pressing challenges you think we should be aware of?
Well, I think water stress is going to be a challenge, and with that kind of stress, not having enough water to irrigate at right times or when we really need it, and anticipating those times is going to be key. And when we don't have water, we cannot have nutrients going into the plant. So I think it's monitoring the nitrogen on the plants and how to manage water is going to be crucial. It's true that then we have years like 2016 that October was one of the wettest Octobers in many years. And it's like, how can you predict that? It's hard to predict, and we just need to be prepared for everything.
So water, yeah.
I guess I think that all of us in this room are in an ideal position. Our entire industry is based on being flexible and ready to take advantage of different situations. That our role is to take the vintage and put it in the bottle. So we're looking, all of us are always looking to just highlight what the vintage does. And if we have greater peaks and valleys in vintage difference, I think that'll make our jobs more difficult. But I don't know that we can necessarily see 5 years in the future and see what the major challenges today are versus then. I think it would probably be the same. The talks today were about topics that have been relevant in viticulture for 200 years, and they'll be relevant in the future as well. I don't think that there's some seismic change. I think the change will be that there'll be more change, and that we're already intellectually suited to driving through change and finding ways to highlight that.
Thank you. Rich?
I'm going to agree with the water issue. I think water and irrigating vineyards and water stress on vines is going to be continue to be an issue that we deal with. Like I said, I think the talk on drought and the drought stress on vines was very interesting today, and I think I'd like to learn more about that. One of the things that water is going to be an issue going forward, regardless. I mean, for those of us that rely on groundwater, I'm sure regulation is coming, monitoring is already happening. So one of the things that we've tried to do is develop blocks with as the highest drought tolerance that we can put in a vineyard for that specific situation, and we've been developing vineyards so that we can reduce water input. It's a requirement as you grow in the wine business, whether you're trying to get a winery permit or expand your vineyard. Water is a big issue, and it's questioned all the time. So that's one of the things we're concerned about, and understanding drought tolerance, I think, is going to be critical.
So you're not so concerned about the decoupling between the rate at which sugar accumulates or acid degrades decoupled from the rate at which color accumulates. You don't see that as a way to incorporate your harvest management decision, maybe shifting a bit away from sugar and focusing more on other compounds. It's not a concern in the next future.
I mean, for me, this vintage was unusual. In the early harvest, we finished picking Sauvignon Blanc, and I start walking all the vineyard blocks, looking for ripeness or a sense of. I don't have some lab person or sampler. It's just me. So I walk all the blocks, and I was surprised by I had excellent flavor density and tannin ripeness at very low Brix levels this year. I thought at 21.5 Brix, I could pick all the grapes,
exactly.
And the flavors and tannins were very nice. But I couldn't really imagine going to market with a 12% alcohol cab. I didn't think that would be very successful, just from a expectation level of what Napa cab should be. It just didn't seem like that was going to work. So I held on picking. Although it would have been nice to get some of the freshness that I was finding. I didn't think that the extraction and the density of the wines would eventually be very good. And then I guess I was bemused or disappointed in that the season went warm on me, and sugar accumulation rocketed very high, and at the same time tannins became rustic and brooding and not very pleasant. So then it's waiting.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was problematic. Eventually, we found a window where we had great tannin, wonderful flavor density, and we were able to start picking. And we finished maybe an hour before the game-ending rain. So it was a very tight window that worked out through luck.
Okay. So gauging what it is to win versus what it is to lose by delaying is still something important, and
yeah, I think we all have to grow grapes and make wine to win, not just to complete the vintage.
Sure. Would you like to add something?
I just think that we never, even if we don't measure tannins or color on a daily basis or every year, I think we need to start to become more flexible. We need to actually listen to the plant, because they speak very loud when something happens to them. If it's the sugar load is not going at the speed that it should go, it's because something is happening, or you are having aberration that is going slow, or the color is not loading as it should go. It's like you just need to listen to the plants and adjust yourself. And now it's sometimes we don't know how to use the tools, but it's good to start using some tools to give us, to actually make us understand what's going on. And I think that's what is the beauty of this profession is that we learn every year, we learn every vintage, and we just need to not close ourselves and say, oh, we just know everything. We need to keep learning. And I think that's the path when this, with climate changing and what is happening, we need to keep learning and trying to adjust ourselves and be respectful to our wine styles as well. So.
Yeah, and in that sense, having more data and better understanding doesn't kill the mystery or the beauty of making wine. It actually displays slightly where the beauty is and reveal where we need to be focusing and maybe also admit our lack of understanding. But for me, the data is not breaking away the mystery of wine. It just reveals what is really a mystery and shade away what should not be such a mystery, I think. Rich?
Yeah, I would say that, as far as anthocyanin production, we typically harvest well after the peak of anthocyanin production. So, I mean, it's good to know all those things, absolutely. And I think that's, again, what this seminar and others do is support what you're practicing and reinforces the educational part of why you're doing things. And I agree that always more data helps you, make better decisions in the future when you learn about, especially what you're doing. So, but it definitely was very interesting as far as putting a better understanding to why we're making the decisions you are, having more detail and data to support that.
Okay. Are there any questions from our attendees? You would like to ask our panelists? I saw none on the Slido. All right, everyone is hungry for lunch, so so thank you to clarify that. So we have a brief announcement.